When it comes to wide receiver Jameson Williams, there's absolutely no question about his talent and his ability to play on the field. But his off-field antics are really starting to get on people's nerves, and people are starting to say enough is enough. We're going to talk about it, so stay tuned.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10-5 end zone touchdown Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions friends and family members. Welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. My friends, I know for a fact that this conversation is one that, for a lot of fans, they're getting quite sick and tired of having. I know that for a lot of fans, they have expressed a lot of frustration, they have expressed a lot of concern, and some have taken it so far as to just absolutely, criticize, express regret, and some just going to the furthest extremities of just saying, listen, when it comes to Jameson Williams, we'd be better off just letting him go. Trade him, cut him, whatever the case is, because he's simply not worth the headache. Now, I've been following Jameson Williams in this whole story, this whole, I would say, kind of like series arc, if you will, ever since the young man got drafted. And for whatever reason, ever since he got drafted here to Detroit, it seems as if people are just always looking for something to get negative on about him. Here's why, for me, this is why I have my episode labeled the way I do. See, for most people, I'd be willing to bet you money, probably my bottom dollar, that when they take a look at the thumbnail image and they take a look at the title, they're going to think that this is a Jameson Williams bashing episode. But quite on the contrary, I believe I'm going to put this as a Jameson Williams defense episode. Let's just take a recap, if you will, of how and where this whole thing got started. This literally goes all the way back to the freaking draft, and the very next day after Jameson Williams gets done being drafted. Now let's understand something here, folks. Jameson Williams was drafted in 2022. That was when the draft was being held in Las Vegas. So, let's understand the importance and the significance of the time that we're talking about here. Number one, it's 2022, which means quite literally we are just now coming out of COVID. COVID regulations have relaxed. The ability for people to go out to enjoy themselves is now starting to come back. Number two, we are in literally party central United States. Las Vegas is the party city of the world. I know this because I've been there for several times. Not saying I'm a partier, but I've been to Vegas multiple times. The nightlife there is rather extensive. That's number two. And then number three. This is probably one of the biggest nights in some of these young men's lives. You just got drafted by an organization. You're going to get paid millions of dollars to play a sport that ever since you were a little boy, you've been playing for free. And you literally just had your name and your face on national television because somebody thought you were worth it, in essence, to use a high draft profile pick on you. And I'm talking about this from the perspective of Jameson Williams. Now, when we put all this into consideration, I can understand very easily why, Jameson Williams might have not exactly been in the best of condition the very next day when he came in for the Detroit Lions, press conference. Oh yeah, he's in Vegas. He's going to enjoy himself. He's probably going to be up pretty late. Hey, I would expect he's going to be probably tired. I would expect he's probably going to be a little bit lethargic, a little bit kind of like, ugh. Okay, I understand that. But see, that's where this whole thing gets started. So many fans, when they watched his introductory press conference after he got drafted, the first thing they went after was how he did not look enthused. He didn't look like he was happy to be here. And instantaneously, everybody started trying to come to their own conclusions as to why he was that way. Oh, well, maybe he doesn't want to be here because he doesn't want to play with Jared Goff because Jared Goff can't throw the deep ball and he can't be used properly. Or maybe just he doesn't like being in Detroit because he doesn't want to play in Detroit. He doesn't want to be here. Everybody and their brother wanted to come up with some sort of ridiculous, harebrained theme as to why he was that way. But again, I go with Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is usually the most correct one. The guy was in Vegas last night enjoying himself and celebrating one of the biggest moments in his life in Party Central, USA. Come on now, folks. That does not need much more explanation than that. But then again, that was just where part of the problem started. And as we all know, as time went by, the problem got more and more, for lack of a better word, exacerbated. Because after the whole draft fiasco, okay, we know that Jameson Williams is most likely going to come back at some point during the 2022 season to play his very first games as a rookie. So we're waiting and waiting for him to come back, for him to be cleared. And all of a sudden, towards the end of 2022, he finally gets cleared to play. Now, I'm just going to say this based upon the reaction of what happened during the time. To me, it seemed as if some fans expected that just by having Jameson out there, that he was going to have the ability to just jump right back into what he was doing at Alabama, and he was just going to add an instantaneous spark to this offense. Well, as we all know, in 2022, that was probably the furthest thing from reality. Jameson Williams had quite literally, if I recall correctly, one catch, and that was about it. The rest of his time of 2022, he really didn't show anything as far as production. And again, that led to, I think, a lot of disappointment for some fans because they were wanting to see that explosive, exciting player that we had drafted, and the disappointment then leads to frustration. Then frustration starts leading to being extreme in criticism, which then, after all that, we start getting into all of the stuff that's happened over like the last, whatever couple of years. Oh, there's the Coney Island incident. Oh, there's the July 4th fireworks incident. This is where I really start getting my cool lost with certain individuals. And not anybody particular. I'm talking about this in a very generalized sense. Because we're talking about two instances where freaking Jameson Williams is just going out and living his life. Here's my question. Who in the hell gave these fans the right to infringe upon a player's freedom to go out and live his life? Let me ask this question. Was anything that freaking Jameson Williams did in either the Coney Island incident, when he went into a Coney Island on a bad side of Detroit, or when he was out celebrating the 4th of July, our nation's birthday, our Freedom Day, what exactly during those two incidents was so god-awful that you had people literally getting on this young man just because, oh, we don't like it? Who gave you the authority to make those decisions? Who gave you the authority to say, oh yeah, we're just going to criticize just because we don't like this? I'm sorry, last time I checked, nobody enjoys having their life criticized when they're just out living it. Nobody enjoys when somebody wants to get into your business and say, oh, well, I don't like what you're doing. Now, I know this for a fact. Some people are going to say, well, David, if he didn't want people, potentially criticizing about it, he shouldn't have posted it on social media. So what, now are we the social media police too? Now are we going to infringe upon people's right to express themselves? That's my whole point. You have fans out there that saw this stuff and they instantaneously wanted to go after him because they didn't like what he was doing, even though there was not a damn thing wrong with it. He wasn't breaking any laws. He wasn't doing anything that was even remotely wrong. But yet people wanted to input themselves and say, oh, I don't like the way you're doing things. I'm going to tell you how to, straighten up and fly right. I'm sorry, last time I checked, nobody on God's green earth likes that. So what makes you think that a young man who's just trying to enjoy himself, trying to, have some sort of life, would enjoy that? Even though Jameson Williams didn't have any sort of reaction or any sort of, kickback towards it, it's like nobody enjoys that. But yet somehow you have these fans who feel like it is their entitlement to do so. No, sir. That's not how this works. But then, after all that nonsense, we then get to what's really bothering people. And this is where people start using some of the stuff that's been going on as to why they say, oh, this is why we have to get rid of Jameson Williams. He's a bother. He's a sideshow. He's a freaking distraction. He's nothing but trouble. They instantaneously go after his suspensions, which so far are the gambling suspension and the now most recent the PED suspension, the violation for performance-enhancing drugs. Now, there's also, as people have liked to point out, that there is a possibility, depending upon what's going on with this potential gun problem, this firearm violation, that it might lead to a third suspension. Okay, let's address all three of these situations really quickly here. For the gambling and for the PED violation, I have just another simple question to ask here, much like how I did with the Coney Island and the July 4th fireworks incidents. Who made the fans the freaking judge, jury, and executioner of Jameson Williams? I understand us as fans, we are naturally going to give our opinions. And you know what? I have no problem with that. But there has to be a fine line between, okay, we're going to give our opinion on something, and then, we're just going to bash and criticize and just go all out on this young individual because now we're frustrated. Now we're feeling like, hey, this guy's being, some sort of way. He's not being smart, blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's examine two of these freaking incidences. The gambling suspension and the freaking PED suspension. First and foremost, as was found out later, the gambling suspension, while Jameson Williams was suspended for the gambling violation, the rule itself was not properly explained. There was freaking a survey done later. It said like 75 to 80% of NFL players did not have a clear understanding of the new rule. So wait a minute here. When you're telling me more than 3/4 of the damn league does not understand the new rule, I would then understand then why potentially in Jameson Williams' case, there would be a problem. Because, correct me if I'm wrong here, out of all the people that were suspended for the gambling violations, I think if I recall correctly, Jameson Williams was either the only one or maybe one of one other, so two people that got suspended for gambling on college games, not NFL games. So wait a minute here. Again, he's gambling on college games, which, let me remind you all, gambling is legal. It's just that in the NFL, what was not properly explained was, you can't gamble on team facility grounds. And that's where that huge gray area comes into perception. Comes into perspective. Let's understand something here. From my perspective, when I think of team facility grounds, I'm thinking of, inside the team building, the team practice field. I'm thinking of places where, this is where we as players, as coaches, as trainers are going to meet up and handle our business and get ready to play football. Because that is where you handle your business. That's where you go to work. I would not think being in a hotel or being in a parking lot outside of that would be considered team facility grounds. That's why there's a huge gray area there that was not properly explained. And that's how we found out that, okay, even though Jameson Williams didn't do anything wrong by gambling on college basketball games, he was in a very, very ticky-tacky gray area of the rule. So you're really going to tell me that Jameson Williams is at fault for the NFL failing to properly explain the rule? Because, again, Jameson Williams technically didn't do anything wrong by gambling on what he gambled on. It was just the location, which, again, not properly explained. Okay, now let's talk about the most recent one, the PED violation. Here's why, for me, this one is rather peculiar. First and foremost, I've said it before, I'll say it again, and I said this on a live stream some time ago. Jameson Williams is one of the most freaking God-gifted athletes I've ever seen. The man is a freaking, just savant and freaking physical specimen when it comes to his ability to have speed. Now, some people want to say, oh, well, performance-enhancing drugs doesn't necessarily have to make you faster or this or that. It could also be used for recovery. Okay, here. Let's just keep this in perspective. These athletes are going through the extreme rigors of their bodies being constantly bruised, broken, tore down, rebuilt up. I'm going to say this right now. Being in the military myself, there is a lot of you got to pay attention to try and make sure you're in compliance with the organization that you're working for. But here's the problem. There are so many damn things out on the natural free market that you might look at the thing and say, well, there's nothing here that I would think is going to get me in trouble, but then all because it's under some other sub-name or some sub-ingredient, now potentially when you have a drug test, you pop hot. And it's like, well, wait a minute here. I didn't do anything. I didn't take anything that would potentially get me into trouble. But it doesn't matter. Now that you've popped hot, you're in trouble. They're not going to care how it happened. They're not going to care why it happened. All they're going to care about is, well, your test result came back positive. Now you're in trouble. Okay, let's understand that. Because if we take into consideration the supposed rumors as to what's going on with this whole situation, we've heard that supposedly it was about a prescription medication that was not filed appropriately with the NFL. That's one potential rumor that I've heard. So, okay, here, if that is the case, let's just, go down that rabbit hole and think about that for a minute. If that's the case, then how is that Jameson Williams' fault? Jameson Williams is not supposed to be the one that files that information with the NFL league office. That's supposed to be his healthcare provider. So that's number one. But let's also think about it just from the perspective of, okay, maybe Jameson Williams just went out, he had something and didn't think it had anything in it, and then all of a sudden he pops positive and now we're in this situation. Do you honestly, seriously think that Jameson Williams would deliberately go out and, actually search for performance-enhancing drugs? There's just no real point or purpose for him to do that. Like I said, Jameson Williams is one of the most physically gifted individuals that's in the NFL. He does not need that stuff. The Lions have one of the best facilities in the freaking NFL as far as for, taking care of their players. They have a great physical therapy program. They're great at their ability to make sure their players are healthy and also their strength and conditioning. There's no reason for him to do that. So it's quite entirely possible that if all else fails, maybe he just took something and he didn't know that it's potentially possible that it was going to come back and pop positive. I'm trying to give the man the benefit of the doubt. Because, correct me if I'm wrong here, but that's right. This is his first offense within that category. So it's not like we have an established pattern here of this guy always popping positive for performance-enhancing drugs or for substance abuse problems. Much like another wide receiver that had so much talent years and years ago, a.k.a. Josh Gordon. That dude could not stay out of being in trouble for substance abuse problems. But yet, you have these Lions fans that just because he freaking has now had a second suspension, the first of which for a performance-enhancing drug that, was only a 2-game suspension, so yeah, it sucks that he got suspended, but it's a 2-game ordeal. I'm not fretting too much about it. But everybody now wants to take a look at him like he's just some miscreant or deviant. And then this whole incident now with the gun violation. Okay, here's my perspective on this. The gun violation is a bit of a problem because if you own a firearm, because I've owned a firearm in the past, first and foremost, you have to legally register it. Then on top of that, you also have to know what about that firearm you can and cannot do. Well, the first thing you ought to know when you buy a firearm is that you cannot just have it in the car without some sort of a concealed carry permit. You have to have that on you because you are now you are literally putting a weapon in a car that nobody else knows about. And as the case is, when a police officer pulls you over and you inform them or they ask you if you have any weapons in the car, which Jameson Williams did actually make sure to let that be known, and you don't have a CDL, okay, now you are in a much bigger world of hurt because you're carrying a weapon around in your car and you don't have the legal paperwork to say that you are allowed to do so. And that's something that every firearms owner is supposed to know because they are told that. So the fact that Jameson Williams did not do that, that is a direct violation on him because he should know better. And the fact that he didn't take the appropriate steps to do so, that is his fault. But again, we're acting like, for some reason, some of these fans are acting like that because, Jameson Williams did that again, he's nothing but a headache. He's nothing but a problem. He's nothing but trouble, and he's a distraction to the team. Okay, here. I remind you all, what did frickin' Dan Campbell say yesterday? The man that quite literally loves players and also at the same time is one of the most brutally honest guys in the frickin' NFL. Frickin' Campbell said, listen, we understand what's going on. He's been nothing but upfront and honest with us about the whole situation. We understand that, yes, it is a problem. But we also understand that this man has shown incredible growth. He's just having some problems right now. He's just made a couple of mistakes. I'm going to just remind y'all here. I'm 30 years old. James Williams is what, 22, 23 years old? I'll tell you this right now. When I was 22, 23 years old, I didn't have all my crap together. I made a lot of boneheaded mistakes. So what makes us think that, somehow a 22, 23-year-old individual that's playing football, getting paid millions of dollars, is also not going to have mistakes? Let me ask you this question. Has Jameson Williams gone out and, killed anybody? Has Jameson Williams gone out and robbed anybody? Has Jameson Williams done anything that is really all that serious of a problem other than this most current one? And in terms of seriousness, this is not that serious. Yeah, it's something that he broke the law on, but we're not talking about something that is of a super serious nature comparatively to other crimes. We have freaking NFL players that are in prison for certain crimes of that nature. And yet, we have fans over here trying to make Jameson Williams out like he is some just absolute thug that's playing in the NFL. And it's like, back the hell up. He's a young man, he made some mistakes. Two of those mistakes quite literally could have been just, hey, we're dealing with stuff that is quite literally in that gray area, and you know what? As the saying goes, shit happens. Pardon my language. But yes, the gun violation, I understand why that's a problem, and I agree, it's a problem. But for people to literally be trying to make this young man out to be just like, this total miscreant to society is just wrong. Leave the young man alone. That's why my freaking thumbnail image is the way it is. Enough is enough. When's enough enough? When are you guys going to be tired of tearing this young man down? When is it going to get through to you guys that tearing him down does not do us any good? Does it make you feel better on social media that you tore somebody down? That you were somehow some social media freaking warrior? Woo! I'm freaking able to type out a nice strong message and I'm better to feel about myself. What exactly does that do? That's why I'm saying the behavior of these fans that want to keep going after him, it's unacceptable. He's dealing with his problems. The authorities are dealing it with him. The Lions are working with him. That's all that needs to be done. Your opinion, you're entitled to it. But you don't have to literally go on social media and just absolutely landblast this guy. That's not called for. It's not your ability to say, oh, I'm the judge, jury, and executioner. It's not my, right to infringe upon his freedoms on what he can and cannot do. Last time I checked, we're in the United States of America. We're supposed to have the ability to do what we can and cannot do within the confines of the law. I mean, that's why I wear my uniform every day for it. But anyway, I've said my piece. I'm going to end this episode because I've gone on it long enough. So, having said that, I'm going to say thank you all for watching another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode. Also encourage y'all to do one of these 3 things: like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If by chance you subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so at the time, I want to highly encourage y'all to do so, but also, please, make sure you hit that bell notification icon so that way you guys never miss any more content that I push out. Also encourage y'all to share this content with your Lions friends and family members. Share it here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you possibly can. Because the more we can do so, the greater the channel can grow, spread, and we can bring in new viewership. And with that being said, to everybody, I hope you all have enjoyed the content. You may or may not have. I also hope that whether or not you are a long-time viewer or this is your first time viewing me, you got something out of the content, good, bad, or indifferent. I also hope you all are, again, having a great day. Hope you all got something in your life that makes you happy, makes you smile. God bless, my friends, and until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.